Thanks for stopping on our channel, which is dedicated to central heating. And as you can see, I've been doing this a long time. Whether you install or you have heating, hopefully my videos will make a difference, but please leave me a comment in the section below. Lights, action, camera, let's begin. Let's talk pumps. We got a lot of questions and a lot of faults, all to do with the circulation of central heating, and obviously the pump is key component in that world. So basically a pump needs just two things. It needs some sort of water pressure, and electricity is going to be between 230 and 240 volts AC. So let's look at the water side first. Often incorrectly pressurized. The gauge here should be 1 bar if the boiler and the pump obviously is located in a 3-bedroom semi or smaller. That's all. Nothing more than that is necessary. If you have a townhouse where you've got 3 floors, for example, or a larger 3-bedroom or 4, etc., then the pressure gauge here is filled to 1.4. And I've done several videos, and there's millions of them on YouTube. They are fixed in stone. When the heating kicks in, that water will expand by 4% on the volume. So obviously that gauge is going to go up and up and up. The maximum we want on a normal system is going to be about 0.2. So you can go from 1 bar to 1.2 and no higher, because after that the pump is struggling to circulate and it will get stressed, which means hot, and it creates air bubbles which then get cooked up here and they turn into sludge. So not only do we have this getting blocked up, but we're getting that sludge shoved through into the radiators, and that continues all the time. Keep the pressure low, the pump loves it. And the other thing that we need to do in of course water would be the inhibitor. So when the system's been installed, it's been flushed out correctly, cold flush, hot flush, and then finally we have at least 1 bottle or 2 bottles of F1 inhibitor from Fernox or X100 from Sentinel. Nothing difficult, nothing strange, and it's not even expensive. But I say at least 1 bottle. Overdose is good, underdose, waste of time. So now we know all the boiler needs, or the pump really, is some sort of circulation here. And the other thing that we've made lots of videos is of course the automatic bypass, which is compulsory on all systems. It doesn't matter who makes the boiler, who makes the system, they all need it. It's a requirement. It's not taking off a cap of one radiator in a bathroom, putting in another cap and saying, oh look, it's an automatic bypass. No, it's not. The bypass has to be located under the boiler, which I've done many videos, and so has everybody else. But for some reason, installers say, oh, it's in there, or it might be in there. I don't care, I'm off. I'm just not interested. It's too much hard work for me to do it correctly. My colleagues at Residio here have sent me this leaflet here, reminding installers and breakdown engineers, because really that's what we teach, is breakdown engineers. They will all get this leaflet starting from the first course in January, just to emphasize the fact that installers who do the installation incorrectly make us rich, because I'm just going to go in there, condemn it, stick this in, I'm going to earn about £300 plus, and everybody's happy at long last. But it would have been nice for the installer just to do the job correctly. The other thing that we need to hear on the expansion side is, of course, it's going to go up and up and up. To keep it low down, we have an expansion vessel inside the boiler or at the back. And sometimes they're too small for the house amount of water to work. So we have to put an external one. And again, we have lots of installers saying, I don't understand this, I just can't be bothered, I'm off. And they just leave the pressure going up and up and up, which is obviously going to ruin the pump. So let's have a closer look at a few more problems that we need to solve. And when we drain down or fill up a system, there's obviously going to be lots of air. So let me show you how to remove the air from the pump the easy way. Before we can fill the system up for the first time, or maybe refill it because we've been decorating or changing a part, we need to make sure that the impeller at the back of the pump is free and ready to roll. So first of all, what we're going to do is protect the PCB, lots of kitchen roll underneath here, and then we're simply going to undo the screw, put a screwdriver in to fit the slot, and we're going to turn it anti-clockwise. We'll do a few turns because remember that it's pumping upwards, that's why it's anti-clockwise. And then we'll put a few turns in this direction. Once we're happy that the impeller is nice and free, we can put the screw back in and just get a few turns, get the slot. Now we can fill the system up to 1 bar or 1.2. At this stage, what we're going to do next is we're just going to loosen this screw a little bit. We don't want to remove the screw completely because there's going to be 1 bar pressure and that screw could fall out miles away, or even worse, water can cascade. Well, we've got the electric off, so it doesn't matter. But all we need to do is just literally just loosen it a little bit and we'll start getting a teardrop. Once we've got 3, 4, 5 teardrops, we could just carefully turn the screw back to the off position. And now we can run the heating system in the normal way for about a minute or two, cough and splutter. And as you can see here on this particular model, we've got an automatic air vent and the cap is loose. It always has to be loose. Any sign of debris, if you're refilling, means that you've got a problem with the expansion vessel and lack of inhibitor, whatever. So that's a telltale sign that we've covered in other videos. But here we just want to see. So lots of kitchen roll all around here because some inhibitors can foam up. So we've run the boiler, coughed and spluttered on the heating side, switched it off, switch a tap on or demand hot water on the system, and again cough and splutter, check the gauges back to where it should be, which is 1 bar or 1.4, and then we can hand the boiler over to the customer. And that's how we fill and vent a pump. Another way we can have a look inside that pump to see what's going on is to listen to it. All you need is a long screwdriver. We need to switch the heating on, make sure it's working. Never do this in hot water mode because some boilers don't use the pump in that mode. So we always measure the pump or test anything in a system in the heating mode. And we're happy that the pump is running. Put it to the screw, put it to your ear, and then listen. You should hear sounds similar to a wind. It's just rotating as a single tone. If you hear crackle, crackle, switch off and replace the pump because the bearings are all disintegrating and you don't know, sooner or later, they will actually completely disintegrate into nothing and the customer will be stuck. As always, breakdown engineers always have 2 pumps on board. Nowadays, that's going to be the UPS 3. So we make sure that we've always got a spare one, as it were, so we can change the front by using the app, the Go Replace app, as we've mentioned all over the place. That'll tell you whether this is a special or it's a nice standard UPS 3. Another way to find out what's going on with the pump is to measure the windings, and that's called the short circuit test. And here's the clip from that video that I've made, the 4-part electrical test. Before you switch on the boiler, make sure it's safe. And the part that we need to measure that pump is called short circuit. So have a look at the video, understand it, and then we can see what the winding tells us. So we measure between the live terminal and the neutral terminal in ohms with the power off. The instrument we need is this one here. It's called an auto ranging multimeter, and that's accurate and that's spot on, and it has to be category 3, so make sure that's written on the front somewhere. The yellow one is a manual one, which is no good for this job because it doesn't give you the correct answer every single time, which is why we don't use them. They're a waste of space for fixing boilers. It has another job. Sometimes we have people turning up here with these G-clamps, and that's a complete waste of time because they measure amps. They're not going to be good enough to measure a pump or a component. They're not designed for that. It's just an ordinary basic, well, not basic, but a good quality auto ranging multimeter. The figure we're looking for is for a 3-bedroom semi, as always, 200 to 220 ohms. Now, because I get all my information from the manufacturer, whether it's Grundfos or Valent or Worcester Bosch, we can tie up the two things together. So here, if it's above 220 or below 200, we understand this pump is for this dwelling, this system, or it isn't for this system. And that's absolutely crucial. And especially if you've got this pump up in the loft or in the garage, you're definitely going to have special winding resistance, because that resistance in ohms tells us the distance that heating system can be from the screw to the furthest radiator. And if you get it wrong, you get cold rads. It's as simple as that. So understand resistance to earth, short circuit tests on that video that I made, which is the PCB testing. Location, location, location. As we all know, we've always used this graphic that we've made here about putting boilers in the loft or in the garage miles away. Obviously that's going to have an effect, because if the further away that is from the big radiators in the lounge or in the hallway, the longer this boiler is going to be working. And obviously it needs support, and as we said, we just go back to our bypass and a great big expansion vessel. But the pump may be too small, because on the keynote presentation, which is coming after the film, so there's a little bit more technical there, I remind people that these pumps have numbers, and the first part of that number is the Venturi. So it's a UPS 15, that's the Venturi size, and then it'll either say 5 or 50 or 6 or 60. Well, 6 is the distance from that screw in the middle of the pump to the furthest radiator in a sealed system, or to the top of the water in the expansion tank in the loft. And if it's less than that, particularly the loft scenario, it's going to start pumping over. So we cover that on our Wednesday course, because we have a brilliant rep from Grundfos called Tom, and he teaches us extra bits of information. So engineers here get that extra info, and of course my videos here that add to the course. So it's not just the course and nothing, it's the course and these videos to remind them and remind you as well how it's easily to do it properly and correctly, as it were, and solve that problem. So location of that boiler stroke pump is absolutely crucial, because if it's too far away, so if it's more than, let's say, 6 meters, 15, 60, 6 meters, which it will be, because that's only 2 rooms, that's not very far, you need to support it with a giant one of these, which is going to be 12, 14, 16 litres to keep the pressure low so the heat can go out. Because you have to remember, in these boilers, it's the return sensor that switches off the boiler. And if it never reaches that temperature, the boiler will be on and on and on, giving you a massive gas bill, more than it's necessary, because it's never going to warm up that front room and that lounge, which is miles away down there. So location is crucial. If you can get it in the middle of the house physically, you've got a happy pump and a low running heating system. One fault that could be is that the pump has decided to stick. It's stuck because of sludge, old age, whatever the reason. The thing to avoid is somebody removing that screw while the whole system is full of water, because it's going to shoot out under high pressure and nothing good is going to happen. And we get these heroes that go around houses and say, yeah, I'm going to put a screwdriver in here. Some of them even switch the boiler on and they say, if you can stop it, you need a new pump. They're absolutely mental. Run away, chuck them out the house, because they're just going to rip you off. But anyway, as soon as you put a screwdriver in there and do that, yes, you will free it and it'll run for a while and then it's going to break down again. If it broke down today, it's definitely going to break down tomorrow. So the idea is that we preempt the breakdowns. We do this with the car, gets to a certain mileage or a certain age, and the factory will say in the manual, at this mileage age, replace this, this and this. We don't do that with boilers, and especially with pumps, and that's a really important part of the system. Without that, we freeze. I suggest when the pump gets to about 6 or 7 years at the most, replace it with the latest version. And installers, breakdown engineers I'm talking about, modern installers, breakdown engineers will have the app Go Replace, as we've seen all over, and it's in the keynote presentation. This top number here, PN, part number, will tell you whether to replace it with the standard UPS 3, and I've got the video on that, or it's a special just made for this manufacturer because it's a little bit smarter. And that's how we do it. But we never ever remove that screw when the system is full of water. Now when we look closer to the new pumps, the UPS 3, the black ones, there's two versions. There's the standard one, which will replace that, and we've got the videos as you've seen on my YouTube channel, and then we've got the two wired ones, so that's obviously going to be special to Baxi, and all of the manufacturers that we use there will move over to their smarter, leaner and greener pumps. But now we don't have a screw to remove, we simply have a crosshead, and here's the Grundfos screwdriver that we put in, and it doesn't matter that we've got water in because it's a dry pocket. So we simply press it in and then we spin it anti-clockwise and then a little bit clockwise, and that's all we need to do to unfree a stuck pump. Now, do you remember the question, which boiler system has the lowest running costs? The answer is the youngest. If you've had a boiler installed in the last 12 months, that's going to be the lowest running costs compared to one that's 5, 10 or even 15 years of age. So it's always the youngest. Assume it's been installed correctly, as it should be, we hope. This will have the best return, and gas prices are forever going up and up and up. So it's the younger boiler saves money. The older boiler costs more. No matter what you think, that's the answer. So always remember, upgrade after about 5, 6, 7 years at the most, upgrade the pump before it seizes up and causes us major problems. One of the ways to make the pump and the system more efficient is by fitting a filter. A magnetic filter, which has been a requirement since 2019. April 2019 is when the bylaws changed. And every single boiler since then, whether it's a Combi or an open system, has to have one fitted on the return pipe just underneath the boiler. And as an example, here's ours. So this one is made by this manufacturer here called Spirotech. Very popular, very good. But many manufacturers, for example here from Intergas, if you fit one of their filters, which costs around the £100 mark, they will give you 2 years guarantee, which is worth hundreds if you have a breakdown, because the labour side is frighteningly expensive because breakdown engineers demand and get paid huge amounts of money. It's not the parts, it's the labour that you want to do. And that's why nowadays there's a requirement that every single boiler has to be checked, and has been since 1920s, has to be checked once a year to the manufacturer's specifications. Now, since 2020, we've had to include a test of the water quality, and it's done by an app either from Fernox, Sentinel, or some of the other manufacturers who provide that service. And that has to be done every 12 months, just to make sure that the water quality is correct. Otherwise, these manufacturers are very happy but disappointed to cancel your guarantee because it's not been installed correctly. And a bottle of liquid is under £20, which would solve the problems. So make sure that you have adequate filtration and magnetic filter on your boiler, and you make sure that the installer fits one, and make sure that every single 12 months, as part of your benchmark, do you remember in the other videos that I made, that's your 12-year guarantee or 10-year guarantee, whatever it is. You miss a beat, your guarantee might well be cancelled. And that would be a shame for a £20 bottle of liquid and a 5-minute job. But unfortunately, many installers just can't be bothered. They do the analysing bit, put it on, but they don't check the water quality. And that's crucial for the pump and the boiler to work correctly. When the pump is located outside the boiler, just the traditional way, first of all, before we fill up the system, we need to put the screwdriver, which is now going to be a crosshead, as we've seen before, into the slot, and then twist left and right, just to make sure that it's free and easy. Now we can fill up the system with water and lots of inhibitor, because these pumps don't like sludge. Once it's all full, vented, and ready to be switched on, we do this test again. So when we've got the thing in, put it in, press forward, left, right. And now the final stage is to switch the system on and test it normally on heating first and then hot water. So the next stage is going to be, we're going to plug in the power lead. Once we've powered up the pump and the heating system, we need to just make sure that we can vent the pump, and it does it by itself. What we should see is what we have here, a green light and 2 yellows. That means it's in the 6 meter mode or the venting mode. So the venting, we listen. The pump will run at maximum speed between 30 and 3 minutes to remove any air. When it goes nice and quiet, it's finished its job. So now we need to pair the pump to the system. On the old pump, it would say the value of it was 1550 or 5, so that's a 5 meter pump in distance, remember, 5 meters, or it's a 1560. So with 3 of the lights on, that's a 6 meter pump. If we have a 5, we simply press the cursor. So we go back to 0, press it once, and this now shows it's a 5 meter pump, which is exactly what we took out. So the points to remember is always make sure that the whole system is as spotlessly clean as possible. The expansion tank in the loft has been washed out and it's as new. The radiators have been flushed out and they're absolutely perfect. Plenty of inhibitor has gone in, and we always use F2 because we're replacing. We're not, the inhibitor, remember, is when it's new, but we're just replacing. So plenty of F2, 1 bottle or 2 bottles, whatever the system water requires. So overdose is good. Underdosed waste of time. And this is the workings of a UPS2 pump replacement. And this concludes the chapter on filling and venting with a UPS3 pump.